It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague, dressed up to the nines in a Star Wars Christmas jumper, it's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
These are not the Christmas greetings you're looking for.
Amazing. Amazing. Christmas jumpered up to F, as they would say in the trade. Neil just describing pre-show how he has 3 Christmas jumpers and has them on rotation between now and Christmas Day.
Well, you can't just wear the same one, because that would just look silly.
Of course. Show this week, week 15. For most normal people, I believe we're in playoff season. I know in our dynasty league we've got one more week left, which is interesting. I look forward to winning again, being 11-5, and still only the 3 seed in that league, and then losing triumphantly in the semi-finals. But that's enough of that. This week we're going to give you some news. We're going to talk big games, sad games, the Buffalo Bills. We're going to give you fancy darlings, fancy losers, and a fancy prediction bound to go wrong. So without further ado, let's get on with the show and get on with the main events, which are NFL news heavy.
Time now for the main event.
Neil, in recent years, one division has always been an S show. Regularly, it's been our NFC East. This year, it's by far not that division, and it is absolutely the NFC South. Right now, who's winning that division?
Well, none of the fans, because most of the teams. Let's see. Actually, no. I'll go bold. All 4 teams offensively, it's unwatchable filth.
Yep.
Tom Brady seriously came back for this. It's just baffling. I mean, they are so bad. I got the Mike Evans was going to be a top 5, whatever it was, fantasy at the start of the season. Whoa, did I get that wrong? Because I'm not being funny. Him and Tom Brady look as if they've never played together.
They absolutely look like they hate each other.
Yeah. It's when Nasser Hussain took over as England captain, that was a ragtag, ill-disciplined. They needed someone to shout at them, and get them up. But then when that act got a bit thin, it was like, well, we're winning now, mate. Why are you still shouting at us? So they then had to, change tack. I just wonder whether they've had the Super Bowl. They've had a year where they probably should have advanced further than they did in the playoffs, and then this year's gone wrong. You just wonder whether there's some players, maybe like Mike Evans, who are just like, hang on, pal, you're the one who retired and then came back. Who are you shouting at? I never retired. I'm still here and I'm committed to it. But you made this all about you in the off season. And now you're coming back and giving it me down the banks. No thanks, mate. It's offensively. I just can't understand. It's mostly the same players. It doesn't help that Donovan Smith, their left tackle, is a penalty waiting to happen.
No, but he is a penalty waiting to happen. But he also must be the unluckiest tackle on the planet, as he had 3 holding calls, all of which come back which were touchdowns called back. Of 130 other holding penalties by other players in the tackles in the NFL, they have also gone for 3 touchdowns. That's just misfortune. He's had 6 and 3 of them have been touchdowns called back. That's just got to be unfortunate.
He's obviously just not very good at hiding it.
True.
I mean, let's be honest. Let's cut to the chase here. It would be absolutely hilarious if the Panthers win this division, wouldn't it?
Do you not think, though, like, there's a logical way in which that actually happens, though? Because they seem to be the most coherent of the teams right this second. I think they're 4-4 since Steve Wilkes took over. By the way, Nebraska fans, if you're listening, enjoy Matt Rule. Hopey is definitely a much better college coach than he is an NFL coach. The Saints stink. Arthur Smith flat out refuses to use his best players. Too busy counting his money.
He's not playing
And
fancy football, mate.
He's not playing fancy football. No, he's not playing winning football either. He's like 1-6 in his last 7 games against some of the worst teams in the NFL. And then obviously Tom Brady and the Bucs hate each other. So it would be mostly hilarious if the Panthers win, but I think there's a chance they do win.
They know who they are.
Correct.
They, as you say, offensively, they have an identity. It's not very entertaining. And this run that they're on at the moment, where I think they've won, as you say, they've won 3 of their last 4, their pace of play has dropped quite precipitously. I think they've gone from they were the 14th fastest team in the NFL 5 weeks ago, and now they're the 24th. This run has seen Donta Foreman average 10.3 fantasy points per game, while DJ Moore is averaging 8. It's a killer of fun, but it works. They're not playing fantasy football, and they're telling us they're not, because other than DJ Moore, everyone else, they're odd job men. No, there's no superstars here, but they're greater than the sum of the parts at present. Whereas the other teams, as you say, there's so many question marks about them all.
Their games are at home to the Panthers, at home to the Lions, at the Buccaneers, at the Saints. So 3 games against pretty mediocre teams in which they're kind of toss-up games. The Lions obviously are a better team, but that is at home. And,
So who's that? Sorry, whose fixtures are
this
they?
is the Panthers play the Steelers at home, the Lions at home, the Bucs on the road, and the Saints on the road.
What? No reason to fear any of them.
No. Bucs, on the other hand, play the Bengals this week, then the Cardinals, then the Panthers, then the Falcons. If we continue this game of schedule bingo, Falcons play at the Saints, at the Ravens, the Cardinals, and the Bucs, and then the final team in this disaster spree, the New Orleans Saints, play the Falcons at home, the Browns on the road, the Eagles on the road, and the Panthers at home. I think the Panthers
every
have
single
got the
Falcons
ease.
game. Every single Falcons game there is going to be absolute unwatchable filth.
Yeah, I think the Panthers have got the easiest chance, and I'm going to say right now that the Panthers win this division.
According to Number Fire's team power rankings, they have the Buccaneers with a 78.9% chance of winning the division, followed by the Panthers at 14.9%, the Falcons at 5.3%, and the Saints at 0.9%.
Wowza. Sad division. Let's get on to sad teams and what could possibly be the saddest game in the NFL this year, if not the saddest game in a very long time. Broncos versus Cardinals this week. Does it get any sadder, Neil?
Just find me 5 people on planet Earth who want to watch this game. And I'm including people who are going to be playing in it. These are 2 teams who've, I think you could argue, for reasons maybe out of their control, maybe not, they've sold their fans and the footballing world false bills of goods. And, we want our money back because this is not, we didn't sign up for this. They've been crap. There's no other way to put it. If Russ looked good last week. Well, if you need to go 27-0 down in the game before the $250 million quarterback you traded for starts to look competent, I don't think that's a road I want to be walking down myself.
These are 2 teams that people had reasonably high expectations of. We didn't. We were cautiously pessimistic on both, but there's absolutely no way we thought they were going to both be this bad. The Cardinals now have a possibility of being bad multiple years, as they are done for this year, obviously, and Kyler Murray has torn his ACL. So in theory, I think you could argue that year is done as well. You've got to get rid of Cliff, you've got to get rid of Kime, but you're not going to have a quarterback until 2024. Now, the Broncos have a quarterback until 2026, and that's technically one of the major problems with the franchise. These two teams need to get rid of their head coaches, consider what they're doing at GM, and reevaluate how, based on the fact they have both paid their quarterbacks $1 bajillion, how they fix their teams to suit the skill sets of those quarterbacks.
I say one team has a head coach and a GM that the owner didn't hire. They inherited them. And truth be told, they've not done an awful lot to impress them. The other team has a head coach and a GM who the owner did hire, has extended, and has watched them do absolutely bugger all. But as we've said, as you and I have said, certainly countless occasions, Steve Keim knows something.
He knows
it's the
lots.
only explanation.
He knows lots.
Yeah, knows where they're all buried, presumably because he helped bury them. The Cardinals were. You thought that every year they showed a bit of progress, but then last year when they were the last unbeaten team, since that point, they've been one of the worst teams in football. The back end, obviously, they backed into the playoffs last year, and this year's just been, from the word go, has been awful. They're old as well.
Yes.
You look at they're promising skill players, the foundational bedrocks of this team. They're old, and they're just a confusing franchise because they should be better than this, but they're not. So I just don't know where they go. I mean, I know what they should do. They should clean house, but whether they do, I don't know, because how do you sell the coach on? Well, we've got Kyler Murray, but we might not have him until November next year. When these opportunities are so infrequent, and the Cardinals, they're not exactly stable at the head coach position. They do go through them. If you could try and say to someone, "Look, come, you'll get Kyler eventually," and you're thinking, "Yeah, but if I'm 2-10 before Kyler comes back, you'll fire me, and then I'll never get another head coaching job." So I don't know. We know what they should do. I worry that they'll go half-arsed at it and fire one of them when they should fire both.
If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, and I know that I'm going to be paying probably Lamar Jackson the franchise tag next year, I'm calling the Arizona Cardinals and asking them what they want for DeAndre Hopkins.
Probably
As
not
he's
very
30 years of age, and the next time he's going to have a good quarterback thrown to him in Arizona will be 32.
And the one thing that we do know, if you look through their illustrious history of wide receivers, the Ravens can't pick their own.
No.
So they'd rather someone else develop them, and then the Ravens can drag something out of them at the end.
I think they did all right the last time they went to Arizona and got a wide receiver, no? Bolden.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, bear in mind, Bolden, was he at Stanford? No, he was. No, you're right. Yeah. I think that was, it's a good track record there. I mean, what they could do, of course, is just find the scout in Pittsburgh who keeps picking these wide receivers, pay him an absolute fortune.
Yeah, correct.
Thereby helping themselves and hurting a division rival. But no, they'd rather draft a bits and pieces, promising-looking wide receiver, get the bare minimum out of him, and then turn to the free agent market for an aging veteran. It's what they do.
Neil, right now the Buffalo Bills are the number 1 seed in the AFC. How confident are you in them? As they haven't exactly been, let's be honest, the Philadelphia Eagles on the NFC side.
I'm not particularly confident at all, to be honest. Their offense is a worry. They're not blowing teams out. They're getting by on Josh Allen and Stefan Diggs making a play, but they're not pounding teams. They're not putting teams away. that we've seen the Eagles do. The Bengals aren't built to annihilate teams, but even they've had games where they've been able to, go postal. So the Bills are a worry because the Eagles have shown they can win in more than one way. The Chiefs have shown that they're going to win by the pass, but they will include an awful lot of players while they do it. This includes running backs. The Bills are getting nothing from the ground game, and the pass game looks iffy. So they're basically relying on Josh Allen, to borrow the late great Trez Paylor's phrase, pulling a play out of his arse every game. Well, your margin for error gets smaller as you get into the playoffs. So I'm not sure how long that's going to be able to last. They're obviously still, 98%, 99% there in the playoffs. But if they had to go up against the Chiefs again, I think I'd take the Chiefs.
What I like about the AFC is there seems to be like a top trumps game going on, in that the Chiefs will beat Buffalo, the Bengals will beat the Chiefs, and I think the Bills would probably beat the Bengals. And there's kind of this round robin where you're trying to avoid the one that beats you to get to the Super Bowl. You can't play great every week, yeah? And it's good to win playing badly. But you can't continually win and you can't continually play badly and win. So whatever funk the Bills have got on offense, they need to fix. I thought they were really good on defense against the Jets. I thought they played really well. They nearly killed Mike White. Like, that was one of the cleanest legal hits that nearly killed a human I have ever seen in my entire life by Matt Milano. He folded him up like an accordion. Unbelievable. If you're expecting their offense to get better this week, may I ask you to take a look at the weather report for Buffalo on Saturday night, as it's 28 degrees and snowing. That's Fahrenheit, for those paying attention, not Celsius. So if you're looking for a high-scoring affair between the Dolphins and the Bills, it's not happening. I think they are okay. I think they do want to be the 1 seed, so they need to keep on winning. But they've got to hope that the Bengals play the Chiefs before they do.
I think it was Nate Tice who said that Matt Milano turned Mike White into the letter C by how much he bent him.
He did. It's correct.
The thing the Bills have got in favour, and this is historically against the Dolphins, this goes back to the Marino Kelly eras, is that Miami would go up to Buffalo and it would be weather from hell.
Yeah.
It would be the coldest, windiest, snowiest day of the year, and the Dolphins, I don't know if it might be news to some people, it ain't like that in Miami. So these players find it a little bit of a culture shock. So I expect them actually to deal with the Dolphins quite handily, however they do it. This could be the Devin Singletary, hey, don't forget about me game, where all of a sudden they give him 25 touches and he gives them 100 yards and nothing more. But then it's as you said, the Bills and the Chiefs as well need to stop playing with their food.
Yeah.
There's, the Chiefs have got a game this week where literally, to quote the popular video game, finish them. Name your number and put it on the Texans, but don't let them hang around. Crush them. Whereas the Bills might find themselves backdooring into a situation like that against a Dolphins team that really doesn't want to be there. I just worry that at the moment the Bills don't have that ruthlessness to do it.
Yeah, what I would say is, if you remember that when Miami played Buffalo in the game in Miami, it was so hot that people basically started fainting, and now they're playing in Buffalo and it's so cold that they're going to be freezing. Taking the definition of East, grouping to its nth degree. Final news item, Neil. Flexed in to Sunday Night Football. NFC East matchup between the New York Football Giants and the Washington Manders. both 7-5-1.
With only themselves to blame for the one.
Manders in the 6th seed, Giants in the 7th seed. Winner has over an 85% chance to make the playoffs, loser down to 30%. Is this the biggest game between these two teams in maybe 20, 30 years?
At this stage of a season, I think it has to be. Usually when Washington have been good over the last few years, they're gotta have it NFC East games have either been against the Cowboys or the Eagles.
Yep.
Whereas, the Giants, as we acknowledge, have had 2 Super Bowl wins in the last 15 years. They've had 3 Super Bowl appearances in the last 20-odd years. Washington have not. And, have had, was it 1 division title in that time? A couple of, few playoff appearances?
Yeah, and they were, yes.
Yeah. The problem is that these two teams are going in completely the wrong direction. Washington are surging because they have an identity and they've embraced it, whereas the Giants got the most out of what they had, but then everything came home to roost. They can't pass the ball. All they can do is blitz, and Saquon Barkley can't carry the load like he was doing. So it will, it's... The Giants are, I think they have a lot to look forward to in the future because they're being run by grown-ups. But the grown-ups are still going to have to deal with an awful lot of detritus that they're picking up from the Dave Gettleman era. Washington are punching themselves in the bollocks by winning with Taylor Heineke, who they could probably do better than, but have spent the last 3 years trying to and just can't. So give him the 6-year extension now and have done with it. Because they've played themselves out of a first-round quarterback. The free agent class looks terrible, as per usual, in 2023. So I think the Commanders win it because I don't want any part of their defense. Whereas the Giants' defense, we saw what a good offense can do to them when the mood takes them. Mm. And I just think the Giants are just so limited. They're so banged up that they're going to miss out completely.
If there was 2 things that the Washington Commanders struggle against, it's blitz-heavy teams and running quarterbacks. They're the only 2 things that the New York Football Giants can do. So that's an issue. Commanders up and down the roster are a better team, unbelievably. They are 6-1-1 in their last 8 games. And I would rather be facing the Philadelphia Eagles coming off last week than the New York Football Giants, as the Manders have a horrific record against the New York Football Giants, especially with Daniel Jones at the helm. Should they win? Yes, they should. Will they win? I haven't trusted this team in 30 years. I don't know why I would start now.
Yeah, Daniel Jones turns into Michael Vick when the Manders turn up.
Correct. That's it for the news of the week. Let's get on.
There is just one news story, though, that we do have to touch on, in that the world of football, more college football than the NFL, did lose one of the great characters this week. Mike Leach, who was Mississippi State?
Mississippi State, yes.
Mississippi State, former of Washington State, former of the Texas Red Raiders, died. He was 61, I think. Legend is a often bandied around word, and it can mean anything. It can mean a man who delivers multiple championships, or it can mean your mate who's been to the bar and comes back with a packet of crisps. It depends on how you use the term. But I won't use the word legend, but what I will say is that Mike Leach is one of the few people who changed the game. College football, you ran on first down, you ran on second down, and if you absolutely had to, you thought about passing on third down but still ran. That's what it was. Hal Mummy and Mike Leach looked at that and thought, we can't beat good teams doing that. So they devised a system to get the most out of the players that they could recruit to their small little teams and pass all over the park. Put all these, they put all these numbers up and they started winning games. and they started getting noticed. The air raid was born. Now, the air raid has its detractors because it hasn't translated into the NFL. But you look throughout the college coaching ranks, look how many quarterbacks from Mike Leach or Mike Leach's disciples, how many of these quarterbacks have gone on to be offensive coordinators and been successful? That's because of what Mike Leach and Hal Mumme, what they put into play. It changed the game. And now anyone who watches the NFL on a Sunday or watches JT O'Sullivan's coaching videos or watches anything and they hear the word mesh, that's Mike Leach. That's an air raid play. It's used by every team in the NFL. Mike Leach was a one-off because he went all around the world literally before he found Hal Mumme and started developing this air raid system. He was coaching in Finland before he met up with Hal Mumme. He was a very, very well-travelled, well-thought, well-thinking man. He was a bit of a character. I don't think Craig James likes him. But he changed the game in college football. He made it the pass-heavy game that it is now. And, the world, especially the world of football, but the world in general, will be poorer for losing him.
Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, and soon-to-be first-round draft pick Caleb Williams, all coached by Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley is from that tree. Ross Dellinger for SI Now. A revolutionary football mind, innovative thinker, and quite possibly the most unique personality in college football. If you get the opportunity, can I recommend the touchdown.co.uk? Cy Carroll at NFL Draft Cy talks about, does basically an over about Mike Leach. Fantastic article, please read it.
If you want to read as well more about the air raid and Leach and Mumme, read The Perfect Pass. It is available on the Kindle. It's available on Amazon as well.
Cool. Let's get on with the fancy stuff, Neil. Fancy darling first.
Hello, darling.
Last week, 1-1. Neil quite rightly picked Jared Goff. He became QB3, 27 of 39. 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. 26.1 points. That's a win. Loss, however, with the Steelers defense, who were only defense 18. A meager 3 points against, I don't know, was it me or you at the end at quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens? I lost track.
It was Pob.
It was not good. And they still win games. Bravo to Baltimore. I don't know how they do it. Neil, who's your first pick this week?
The annoying thing is, my fancy darlings, I do 3 people for Nat Coombs, to go on his podcast, and I take 2 of the 3 for this. The 3 people that I went with last week, was Jared Goff, winning, Steelers defense, not winning, and the one that I didn't go with was Evan Ingram.
I don't know if anyone's aware, but Evan Ingram went from tight end 57 million to tight end 4 with his 74 catches for 4 billion yards against the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. So just this is a woe is me after the fact that I could have gone 2-0, but I digress. This week I'm going up against the quarterback who's going up against Jared Goff this week, and that's Mike White. If you're going into week 15, whether it's the fantasy playoffs or whether you're still in your regular season and you need a streaming option at quarterback, it's not ideal, but it is possible. So you might have Lamar Jackson, you're in trouble. You might have had Kyler Murray, you're in trouble. You might just want a bit of an edge. Well, although the weather in New York probably isn't going to be very good, I don't think it's going to be as bad as the weather in Buffalo. Sorry, the weather in Jersey isn't going to be as bad as in Buffalo. You can't ask for a better matchup than the Lions' passing defense. The Lions are averaging 275 passing yards and just under 2 passing touchdowns a game over their last 5. No team has allowed more fantasy points to quarterbacks than the Lions in that span. So assuming he can turn himself from a letter C into a straight line again, Mike White's in play as a viable fantasy streamer.
Weather is 40 degrees Fahrenheit and clear and sunny. so nowhere near as bad. Who's fancy darling numero dos, please, Neil?
We're going to go for a defense this week again. And this week we're going to go with the Denver Broncos. Obviously, they're playing the Colt McCoy-led Arizona Cardinals. It's not pretty, the Cardinals' offense, as we say. The Broncos have just been unlucky this season because their defense has been fantastic. They're 4th in points allowed, 7th in yards allowed, and they're tied for 9th with 11 interceptions. 3 of them, of course, came last week. The Cardinals, whoever's been a quarterback this season, they've taken 37 sacks and have averaged 5.8 adjusted yards per attempt. If you don't know what the adjusted yards per attempt formula is, don't worry about it. I'll break it down for you. 5.8 adjusted yards per attempt is crap. It is a abysmally low figure. So I think this week you can ride with the Broncos.
So we did the on my favourite stat ever. The Broncos would be are 3-10. If they would have scored 21 points in every game they played, they'd be 9-4. If they would have scored 25 points, they'd be 11-2.
Yeah, but if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a wagon.
But what I'm saying is, this is not a defense problem. This ain't be no defense problem. This is a problem with someone else who should be a loser every week. But let's find who this week's fancy loser is for Neil. Last week a victory. Tom Brady, quarterback 21. 34 of 55 for 253 yards, 1 and 2. I have 2 questions on this. How did he get that many yards? I watched that game. And 2, what the bejesus was he still doing on the field at 35-0 down?
Signing autographs by the looks of it.
Neil, who's the fancy loser this week?
Fancy loser this week, we've already spoken about his matchup. It is the player who still leads all players in Pro Bowl voting. It's Tua. Now, Tua has had some very good games this season. He's had some where he's not looked great. If you look at his splits, when he's played pass defenses ranked 1 to 16, so top half of the league, he's averaging 15 fancy points per game. When he's playing defenses that are ranked 17 to 32, he's averaging nearly 25. The Bills are in the former category. It's going to be cold. It's going to be wet, probably. It's going to be windy. It's going to be, frankly, horrific. They're going to come after him, and Mike White can tell him that it's not fun. So I think if you are going with Tua this week, you're going to be disappointed.
It's cold. It's windy. It's wet. Offenses need not apply. Yeah, this makes perfect sense. Let's get on with fancy predictions. Bound to go wrong. Last week, Neil, both losses, but one closer than the other. Last week, I suggested that CMC would get 35 plus points. He ran for 119 yards with a touchdown and then had 2 receptions for 34 yards and a score. He scored 29.3 points. It's a loss, a good loss, but a loss all the same. You hitched your wagon to the Dallas Cowboys defense, expecting them to dominate the Houston Texans. And then the Dallas Cowboys did what the Dallas Cowboys do, and that is disappoint people when you least expect it, and they only got 4 points in a loss. You thought they'd get 25. What's your fancy prediction this week, Neil?
My fancy prediction this week, when I spoke before about the Chiefs having an opportunity to absolutely crush their opponents this week, it feels like I'm following this team around, and I am, because I'm going to get one right eventually. I'm going to say at the end of week 15, the running back 1 overall in fantasy football will be Isaiah Pacheco.
I assume that's because he'll still be running when everyone else is having a nap, as they're 28-0 up after, a quarter and a half.
You know how we say that, Nick Chubb is a great running back to watch actually run?
Yeah.
And we say that Lamar Jackson just glides, and Jalen Hurts seems to move at a different speed to anyone else. It amuses me to watch Isaiah Pacheco run. He runs like Benny Malone, who was a backup running back for the 73 Miami Dolphins, I think. He doesn't look like it's something he naturally does, but he does it angrily as well. So, yeah, I just think that this is pile up the stats to show that we can run the ball, Big Red. Let Pacheco have his day. Because Travis Kelce's getting a bit droppy the last few weeks. He's got a mistake in him. So I'm just thinking, if he is still the engine of the passing game, as it were, so other than Juju doing his Wayne Rooney celebrations. But yeah, I just think this is even though we know he ignores running backs, Big Red likes his running backs to have one big blow up game a year. This is Pacheco's time.
I love the idea of someone who's known Neil since 2002 and has watched NFL with him for all that time, that he is hitching his wagon to a running back who's coached by Andy Reid, when he spent the first 15 years of our existence screaming at Andy to run the ball more. My pick is in a sad game, not the sad game we discussed earlier, which was obviously Cardinals, Broncos, but the Browns against the Ravens. Offenses need not apply at the moment for these two teams due to quarterback issues. Very different quarterback issues, but quarterback issues all the same. Based on that, the highest point scorer in the Browns versus Ravens game won't be a quarterback. It won't be a running back. It won't be a wide receiver or a tight end. Defense and special teams will score more points this week than any of the players on the Baltimore Ravens or the Cleveland Browns. That game could end 3-3. I am telling you now. Because first of all, I don't know who the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens is. Somebody called Brown, right? And Deshaun Watson thinks he's throwing to AB de Villiers. One bounce, it's allowed to bounce once before they catch it. Like, he's skipping stones there, not throwing passes.
Do you know, it's a shame that we're not going to see it for over the course of an entire season. Because I think if it was a full 17-game slate, based on what we've seen in the first two, the Browns quarterback would be making Russell Wilson look good.
Yes, very true. Very true.
Now, obviously, hasn't played competitively for 2 years or whatnot.
700 days, yes.
700 days, yeah. But the thing you have to remember is, I hope he fails.
Yeah.
And fair. I will take great pleasure in watching it happen.
Fair, and that's why I'm happy to take Ravens defense or Browns defense as highest point scorer. Neil, that is it for this week. Close to Christmas, but still a lot of work to do. Fancy playoffs upon us. Before we get to next week, where can people catch you?
Follow me on Twitter at N.13. Find my stuff in the usual places: Numberfire, Rotoviz, Player Profiler, 4for4. Also, as well, if I could have your best wishes and goodwill, as I am in the 4th round of the playoffs in the Scott Fish Bowl. It started at 3,000. It's down to 1,000. And this week, 500 people will get eliminated. I'm ranked currently, out of the 1,000 people left, I'm ranked 43rd. I have never done this well in this competition before. So if I could have any goodwill you have lying around, because, just once, care about my fantasy team. Because I'd like you to.
I am at Mandy7. Combine me at waxing_lyrical. As Neil said, send out your thoughts for the Scott Fish Bowl team. That's the only text he sends me every Monday morning. So you guys should know that I get bored of it too. If you like my voice or you like the voices of others talking NFL, let me direct to the Touchdown Review, brought to you by thetouchdown.co.uk. This week, Thomas, Callum, Taib and Joe answer the question, which team outside of the playoffs are going to make the playoffs And why should it be the Detroit Lions? No, sorry, that was Taib's answer. Good show. Give it a listen. Give it a review. That is it for this week. If you're in the playoffs, good luck to you. If you're in the Scott Fish Bowl, good luck to you. If you're still playing in your Dynasty League, dreading the fact that you're going to get beaten in a semi-final next week, don't worry. There's always next year. Until then, until next week, these top guys are out.